I'll get started then. Hi everyone, thank you for joining the peer support workshop. Today I'm just going to share a little bit with you about my role and where it fits in with CAMHS, a little bit about what peer support is, as well as what it's like working in a busy community team like Community CAMHS South. So hopefully give you a bit of an insight to that as well. So I've got a bit of a presentation. I try not to bore you too much, a little bit of a video in there as well. So if you've got any questions at all, feel free to raise your hand or write in the chat box, and there'll be a little bit of time for questions at the end anyway. Okay. So peer support, I don't know whether anyone's come across it before. It's a relatively new role within mental health and quite a new role within CAMHS. So peer support at its core is based upon shared experience. So peer support workers generally have experienced struggles with their own mental health in the past. Obviously that can look like lots of different things. There's a massive spectrum. Or we do have carer peer support workers who have actually been involved in supporting other people who have had mental health, been through services or struggled with their mental health in the past. So I've been in this role now for about 2.5 years. I've actually been in support for 13 years, and the reason I started out as a support worker was because of my own experience as a teenager. So it led me to want to work with people and use that experience really to help others. And I think that's the difference, and hopefully what you'll get from this workshop is it's a choice really. We as we all know, all of us are human and we've all experienced different difficult things in our life. Peer support, I believe, is that choice to use that experience, to go to that place and use it to help others. So it can be a slightly different role. I'm just going to read you a bit of a quote out. So peer support is when we use our own experiences, knowledge, skills and emotional, social and practical support to help each other in a mutual way. So it's a relationship based on exploring our own experiences and therefore challenging the hierarchy and stigmas that young people might feel when entering a mental health service. So peer support is a really different role to a lot of the clinical roles that you'll get. I haven't got an agenda when I work with a young person. I'm going in my head, my role is to get to know that young person and understand them. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What do they want from their life? And that's the special thing about peer support. I don't need to go in and look at diagnoses or all of the formal things that a lot of my team have to do. So I think it's a really nice bridge to connect the young person to what can be quite a scary experience coming into a mental health service. Someone else needs admitting. So there's a lot to peer support, and I think it can often get misinterpreted. So I want to just talk to you a little bit about that. So we call it expert by experience. So we try and empower through a peer support perspective. We believe that everyone is the expert in their own experience, and it's trying to empower people to value that within themselves and show up to our work with young people without expectation and without judgment and without trying to fix or solve, which can sometimes be sorry, I'm just aware that other people are just admit people in, which can sometimes be a completely different way of working for our young people or for anyone that's experienced going through mental health services. It's very informal, and it's very it's about that relationship. And you know, if anyone has ever worked in mental health services or been involved in mental health services, you'll know that a lot of what we do, or a lot of what my colleagues will do, is try and gain that evidence by questionnaires and trying to understand if there's been a significant change in the ROMs, and there's all these acronyms for different ways that we measure that. But peer support, I believe, is the value of peer support is measured by the value that on that relationship that we build. So there's a lot of evidence for peer support that I'll go on to in a moment, but it's a very personal and special relationship that you build with someone, because you're basically giving them yourself, and you're sharing things that are very personal and you know, that have been difficult for you. And sometimes it's really hard to find that line between what's a job and what you feel, you know, and it's a very blurry line sometimes. So I wanted to share with you a little video. It's only a couple of minutes long, but to me, I don't know if anyone's heard of Brené Brown. She was at the very centre of our peer support training. So we have to go on like a 10-session classroom training when you are successful in a peer support role. To like I say, the core of peer support is the shared experience, but we are skilled and we have been trained in a specific way to bring all of those positive and powerful techniques into peer support. And a big part of that training was a lady, I don't know if you've heard of her, but a lot of you might have. She's quite successful now. I think she's quite popular now. Brené Brown is a researcher over in America. She was a social care background, and she's done a lot of research on the power of shame and empathy and vulnerability. And one of the little clips she did, I think, is really it hits the nail on the head when it comes to why we use peer support in CAMHS. So I'm just going to play this video to you if I can. Let me see if I can just stop sharing quickly. Okay, so I need to just make sure I'm sharing the volume. Hold on. Okay, where are we?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay. Well, let me just stop that. So I hope that you enjoyed that. I really like that video, and I think it's to me it's that's peer support. It's about being able to get down and be with that person and connect to things in our lives that have been difficult without trying to solve a problem. And I think a lot of the qualities that peer support entails and the skills that we have and what we learn about come into a lot of the clinical roles as well. So it's listening skills, it's that ability to validate someone's feelings without that judgment and without an agenda. So we work towards what we call the core principles of peer support. So these, like I've said to you, I've always worked in support. It's only coming into the NHS and having a team dedicated to the understanding and evidencing and development of peer support in our trust. And really quite intense training that we went on. And I feel the core principles that I'll just quickly talk through really are an anchor for me. I am the only peer support worker in our team. It's a very busy team. There's a lot of clinicians, and you can often get pulled outside of your lane into things that aren't necessarily roles that are that align with what peer support is. Oh, hold on a minute. Present. So I really find that the coming back to these core principles keep me quite grounded in what it means to be a peer support worker in a community team and support young people and families. So I'll just quickly talk through them. So mutual, my experience as a peer support worker is about mutuality. It's about recognising that there isn't a hierarchy in my work with young people. It's a level playing field, and I'm not there to fix. I'm not there to set an agenda. I'm there to have a mutual understanding and a shared experience about different things. And from working here, it's not always my mental health experience. It's different things that we've all experienced throughout our lives that can connect us and that we work through and talk through together. So it's reciprocal as well. It's an equal relationship. I'm not an expert, and I'm not going in there saying I'm fine now, this is what I did to get better. It's never like that. It's a relationship based on learning from each other, and it's non-directive. So this is one of the main things that I love about peer support, because I don't think anyone has ever got anywhere from someone telling them this is what you need to do and you're not doing it and that's why you feel this way. If you think back to Brené Brown's work, that kind of the way that you can deliver that kind of message can leave someone feeling quite ashamed. And from her research, it suggests that you can't ever make a positive change from feeling ashamed. So a lot of my work is about that empathetic approach, and about empowering people and about having the conversation. And if we have the conversation and then they don't do anything after that, that's fine. It's not about that. So it's a really lovely role in that respect. And I can honestly say sometimes planting that seed and taking the pressure off without telling people what they should be doing can be so powerful. And to see them then go on to make the changes that they feel that they want to make is a lot more powerful and has a bit more staying power than when people tell them what they think they should do. Again, strengths based, so it's about trying to identify people's strengths within a family as well. And I see that echoed throughout a lot of other therapeutic works and therapeutic teams within my team, such as family therapy, is very strengths based, and I can really, I really feel aligned to some of the work that they do. It's about recognising that we're all different and pulling on people's strengths in order to aid recovery. So it's inclusive. understanding what mental health means. It's about being part of a community and recognising that everyone's different and meeting people where they're at. So recovery focused is a big part of it. We are focused on recovery as peer support workers, but obviously it's about hope, inspiring hope and sharing that they're not alone. Everyone will go through something in their life, and hopefully sharing that there is a way through, but also that recovery is ongoing and it means whatever you decide it means. It's a definition that sits with you. So it's a very it's a lovely role in that respect, that we get to share that with our young people at such a important age, that they get to decide what these big words mean. Progressive, so it's moving forward in a shared journey. So we learn from each other. I've learned so much from the young people that I've worked with and all the people that I've ever worked with. There's no hierarchy, and it's learning together. So just quickly, I just thought about sharing some of the skills that we learned. We do a lot of work around our listening skills and active listening skills, how we would write notes and thinking about how we would write them in a way that was abided to peer support, core principles. And one of the things that stuck with me and that I take onto my own life is being very aware of the language that I use and how I phrase things. So thinking about some of these sentences: you really worried me when you didn't answer my call. How could we rephrase it to be less impactful on that young person? I get really worried if I don't know that you're safe. It takes that pressure off. So it's just I just wanted to share with you a little bit about some of the more skilled side of peer support that I think can sometimes get overlooked, because it is one of the roles that doesn't require a qualification. Like I say, it does require you to have had an experience yourself, or have experienced a family member or relative, same thing, family member or friend or someone in your life that's experienced or gone through mental health services or experienced mental health in general. And then the rest we learn, you build on that. So thinking about peer support in practice and what it looks like in a busy team like Community CAMHS South. So I work, peer support is a complement to therapeutic work. So a young person will come into our team, they will be given a care coordinator, and that care coordinator will decide on their care plan in regards to what therapeutic work they will be offered from us. Peer support will run alongside that, so it won't be standalone. It will always be something extra. And often I get brought in to offer peer support if we feel that this young person actually just needs a space to offload or to talk or to feel validated and heard, if they've maybe not got that. If a young person is really struggling to engage, I get brought in to sort of to aid that relationship and spend time building that relationship. Because with peer support, you can really get a good idea of what's going on in the family environment through this role. And it can really help inform the rest of the team when they're managing risk and thinking about, how they move forward with the care plan. So I do work one-to-one with young people, and that will look like a coffee or a walk, or going to the house, sitting in the garden. I very rarely do my one-to-one work in a clinical environment. It's normally in the community. And that will be for an hour, maybe fortnightly. I'm really flexible, and there's some young people that I'll do a set piece of work with. Say if we've got a young person coming to the age of sort of 17 and a half, looking at transitioning out of our service at 18, then I'll offer some support and think about how that transition will look. But for some young people and families, I've been working with them for a long time, so it completely varies, and that's one bonus of working in peer support compared to a lot of the clinical roles, is that I can be flexible and I can choose and I can go with the flow and see what works best for people and their families. So as well as working one-to-one with young people, I do offer peer support to parents and carers. So it's, as a team, we're very aware of taking a systemic approach, which means thinking about not just the young person, what's going on at school, what's going on in the family relationships, and looking outside of that. And I think working with parents has really aided some of the therapeutic work with the young people if we do it alongside, and thinking about the parents' mental health and well-being, signposting and stuff like that as well. So I do run peer support groups, which I'll talk to you a little bit about in a while. I support alongside family therapy clinics sometimes, which can be really useful if I've worked with a family for some time and I've got a good insight. I do a lot of liaising with outside agencies, social care, housing, education, employment, anyone and everyone. If there's an agency that might have a positive impact on a young person's life or their recovery or their transition out of CAMHS, I will work with them. And again, that's why it's quite a niche role within our service, because I can look beyond the mental health diagnosis and look at all of the other impacts and all of the other things that contribute to that young person's life. I have done a lot of work with schools. Mainly that work includes thinking about how we can sort of remove the barriers that the mental health might be having on them accessing their education, which has been really interesting, and I'm learning as I go, but it's been really useful, I think, to think about how schools can work and what we can do to. I think schools can sometimes be a little bit scared of mental health, so how we can support them to offer what they might need to offer. And of course, contribute to therapeutic work sometimes, so can often be involved in reviews, clinical discussions, multidisciplinary meetings. So yeah, I know a lot of that. I hope you understand some of that. I remember when I first started and everyone was using all these acronyms and I did not understand. It's like a new language. So how else can peer support help? I think I've covered most of this. So we signpost. I can be the advocate for young people as well. So when we're thinking about things like EHCPs, which are education healthcare plans, so this is the plan that we'd put in place if a young person couldn't access school, and how we, you know, what provisions they might need. It's really important to get that young person's voice. Often we can't, and I think peer support is a really good way of trying to gather that information and gather that young person's voice. Peer support groups, as I say, I was running peer support groups for young people. I'm currently doing monthly peer support groups for parents, which has gone really, really well. We look into wellbeing plans, so we can use our space to think about wellbeing and create an individual plan that again is led by the young person. Careers and employment, I work with futures and supported some young people to signpost to futures who have then gone on to either retrain or get apprenticeships. There's lots of different things they do. So we try and look at how I can signpost to something specific, again, like housing. I've had some young people that wanted to leave the home, so we've done the application forms and referred on to housing, referred on to specialist services. There's a lot of services out there, and I think because I'm lucky enough to have worked in support a long time in Nottingham, I've built up a bit of a good working knowledge of what's out there and try and utilise all of that. So as well as peer support and the role itself, there's a lot of other things I do, supporting the volunteering, engagement, involvement and participation. As you've seen, MH2K have been here today. So really thinking about how I can use my role, because it's so flexible and different to a lot of the roles, how I can use it to really bring the young person's voice in, so they can challenge and shape the CAMHS service and the service that future generations will get. So it's informed by the young person because it's their service. So we do a lot of work on that. Also awareness days, try and do a lot, bring that in, because I think it's connecting with young people, and it's bringing a bit more colour, lots of different things into the role and into our service. So there's lots of benefits of peer support groups. I'm sure most of you would have heard of different peer support groups, such as AA, like NCT groups, for example. You'll see peer support everywhere you look. Peer support is coming together for a reason. It's coming together for a shared experience. So running the peer support groups, you see naturally that people start to recognise that they're not alone, and that they're not the one, that they learn from each other, they learn from each other's experience, and they start to find the ability to make their own decisions and feel a bit more empowered. So what's it like working in a community team like CAMHS? Well, it's busy, I can't lie. I feel like I'm constantly learning, and just when I think I've learned enough, I realise that I'm the tip of the iceberg. So there's so much to learn, so many places to go at CAMHS, and it's never ending. There's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge. It's very fast paced. Obviously, with the clients that we work with it being young people and families, it can be very emotive. It can be it can be hard sometimes to manage that and find that line and keep your professional boundaries. Every day is different, but especially in my team, I can honestly say it's the most compassionate and hardworking team I've ever worked in, without a doubt. There's someone always at the end of the phone, and you very much feel like people have got your back. So it's a really great place to work in that respect. I feel very valued in my role, feel very appreciated, and very supported. And I think that's, we're at work for such a large proportion of our life, and these are the things that I wanted from working in a team. So I feel very grateful to be in my team. So that's it. I don't know whether anyone's got any questions. Feel free to write in the chat if you have, or if you want to put your hand up or anything, if you've got any questions, just let me know.
Sorry, it's a really simple question, but the location is in the NG3 area, or where are you based on?
So my team is based at Hopewood, and Hopewood is, I think it's NG3. It's Sherwood Arnold way. Sorry?
Mansfield Road, not far.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Mansfield Road. Well, our team cover Gedling, Rushcliffe, and Broxtowe. So a lot of the other if the clinicians are at the clinic, obviously they're based there. In my role, I'm more out and about in the community. So I spend a lot of the time on the road. Well, I haven't as much this last year gone, but normally that I would be out and about visiting my young people in their home environment or around where they live in their local community.
Just thank you.
That's okay. It's okay. And yeah, just to say as well, I think I was thinking we did this session this morning, and some of the questions were around similar roles to peer support. I think we have got one post coming up. I don't know whether I don't think it's in our team, but we will have hopefully more coming up in the future. But other roles similar to think about would be the family support worker role. So if anyone's got like more of a background where they've worked in health and social care, in mental health, or with young people before, but maybe don't have that experience of having mental health themselves, or to supporting others with mental health, family support worker it's probably well, we work quite closely together, myself and the family support worker. Let me just have a look at that. So there is no formal qualifications. You do your training once you've started. The only thing that is a definite is that you need to have experienced mental health, or have supported someone who has experienced mental health before. And what I'll say is, once you're into peer support, I mean, I've been very lucky to have been asked to train in different things myself, and so I train in a parent in MVR, which is a parent workshop that we run. I support with the mindfulness, so I've learned so much. So although it can feel like a separate role that's maybe less clinical, it really isn't, because you're still learning and you're still gaining that knowledge, and there's still lots of ways to progress. Lots of roles always coming up where you can progress and use that experience of being, honestly, I've only been here 2.5 years, but it must be about 10 years experience that I've gained, because it's very fast paced, and lots of different people from different backgrounds, CBT, DBT, psychologists, sociologists, people from social care backgrounds. There's just so many. So it's in that way, if you're interested and passionate about mental health, the mind and psychology, and it is the place to be, because you'll never be bored and there's always something to learn. Right, I don't know if anyone's got any more questions.
Do you have also part-time opportunity or just full-time?
A lot of the peer support roles, when they do come up, are normally part-time. So I started on 15 hours. I increased my hours after about a year. I increased my hours to 22. I think a lot of the peer support roles are about 15 hours, to be honest.
Yeah, thank you. And working also at the weekend, is that obligatory or?
No, so not in the role that I'm in. So in the community teams, no, we do office hours Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. CAMHS do have a crisis team that normally have a peer support worker, and that is shifts actually. So that is that can be unsociable hours.
Thanks.
Anyone else? And like I say, I'll leave the chat open, so if anyone thinks of anything they want to write in the chat, I'll keep it open this afternoon and answer any questions you might have, or drop us an email and I'll try and answer. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.